Hello and welcome to www.luxurytolast.com. Today we're discussing who is ARCHIELUXURY. ARCHIELUXURY is me. That's right. I've received heaps of emails and comments asking more about who I am and what I am, and I kind of thought, well, why not put a video together? Who is ARCHIELUXURY? And ARCHIELUXURY is me. It's Paul Pluter. At the time of making this video, I'm 38 years old. I am a small-time vintage watch dealer and collector. I love jewelry. I love Louis Vuitton. I love luxury watches. I love all things of beauty and prestige. I'm a bit of an interesting character. I've actually been married 3 times. And I've had quite a few indiscretions along the way. But in the same token, I do think I do have good values and principles. And I think myself, it's very important to have values. And although I don't follow any particular religion like the Catholic Church, which I think is very hypocritical, I do like to think that I am a good person in the sense that I would help a child in need. I would help a mentally disadvantaged person if they were stuck in the street. And I have done that. I remember one person collapsed outside the building I used to work at, and I called an ambulance and stayed with that person until help arrived. I'd like to think that I'm a good person who would help people if they were in need. And that's what I think's important. Sure, I haven't been perfect. I've been married 3 times and I've had a number of indiscretions along the way. And I must say, the only thing I love more than luxury goods is women, particularly Asian women. And that's a weakness that, I think some of the greats, like Bill Clinton and John F. Kennedy, have had similar weaknesses. Looking at myself there, who am I? Well, I have 4 children. I have an 18-year-old son. I have a 15-year-old son. That was from my first marriage. And from my third marriage, I have 2 young boys who are 4 and 5. And the 4 children that I have, that's the 4 children I know of. I really love them, and I hope to be a good father. More important than having a Patek Philippe or a Mercedes-Benz in the driveway, I think it's more important to be a good father and try and earn the respect of your children. That doesn't mean to buy them everything they want, but it means to give them values and principles to live life that I think is along the lines of basically a Patek Philippe advertisement. I know that sounds corny, but I love the Patek Philippe brand. It's a brand that I really can see many parallels with. My heroes in life. Who are my heroes in life? Well, firstly, there's my father. My father's probably the greatest salesman I've ever seen. Very smart person. He's struggled in his life. He came from a working class family, and my ancestry is actually Ukrainian. That was a part of the former Soviet Union, and They were peasants. My ancestry is peasant stock. So anyone who thinks I'm an aristocrat or blue blood, well, no, you're wrong. I'm not. I'm a peasant, and quite proudly so, I must say. I mean, I have many friends who are aristocratic English, and their desire for sex, they just want to have sex once a week. I mean, for God fucking self. I mean, Jesus Christ. Any decent Eastern European man at least wants to have sex once a day, don't they? I mean, that's just. I proudly wear my Eastern European flag there. I can certainly say that much. As far as my role models, my father's very strong to me. He was a fantastic dad. Also, my stepmother, Sonia, my real mother passed away when I was 15 from breast cancer. My stepmother has been absolutely fantastic to me. She's been absolutely wonderful, although I haven't been that good to her at times. My role models, well, I tend to be more left-wing than right-wing as far as politics go, because I don't like to see people suffer. And this is quite funny, because a lot of people say to me, you collect jewelry, you collect obscene displays of wealth. Patek Philippe, Vacherin Constantin, Audemars, Piguet, you collect diamonds, you collect Louis Vuitton, you collect beautiful things. And I'm actually quite left-wing in my politics, because I like to see the government helping poor people. I like to see children. I don't like to see children suffer. So a lot of my politics are actually quite left-wing. I actually live in Australia, so in an Australian context, I'm more of a Labor supporter than a Conservative. However, I will swing as far as politics go. On an international scene, as far as American politics go, I'm a huge Barack Obama fan. I think he's a wonderful president, and I absolutely I'm so happy that he's a president. I think George W. Bush was an absolute disaster, and I say this with experience because for a long time I worked for Halliburton, and then I worked for the subsidiary KBR. So I can say honestly, in all honesty, there I thought George W. Bush was one of the worst presidents the world has seen, and I am so pleased Barack Obama is the leader of America. I'm also a huge fan of John F. Kennedy. I love his speeches. I think he was one of the greatest presidents the world has seen. I'm a huge Bobby Kennedy fan. I do like the Kennedys. I must say, I do like Arnold Schwarzenegger, even though he's a Republican. But in all honesty, most of my politics are more left-wing. I didn't think Jimmy Carter was a great president. I liked Ronald Reagan, for example. So I'm not set in my ways. I don't have to always be left-wing. But often my politics are more... I'm interested in social justice. I'm interested in helping people. So my politics do tend to be left-wing. With that said, I must say, when I was a youngster, I've gone to university. I never completed a law degree, but I've studied law. I've never completed my IT degree, but I studied IT, and I also did English literature. And I remember I was involved in the left-wing Labour Party, and all the female members were all sort of what you'd term lesbian or dykish. And I remember a friend of mine on the Conservative side said, "Come, let's go to in our country in Australia, it's called the Liberal Party, which is quite a oxymoron because they're a right-wing party." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that, you know." And this woman, that's the first time any woman asked me to sleep with me, and I must say I've been a Liberal supporter ever since then. I mean, any party where I can go to an event and a woman wants to sleep with me, they get my vote. That's for sure. I've had an interesting life. At 18, I bought a brand new BMW for myself. I paid $36,244 in 1991 when the interest rates were 20%. I paid cash mostly for the car. I borrowed a small amount for the car. I had my own business. I had my own computer business. I was selling computers at the time. This is when it was profitable. I've also done many interesting things. I've traveled the world. I've been to Europe. I've been to Eastern Europe. I lived in Asia for a couple of years, and I've also I've lived and worked in Australia for most of my life, I would say. As far as who I am as a person, I love luxury goods. I love watches. Watches are probably my first passion. When I was in business for myself, I started my business when I was 15 and I was in high school. I really wanted to get the best watch possible, so I started with an Omega Quartz. Then I thought, well, a Rolex would be the great one to get. So at 18, when I got my green American Express card, I bought a Rolex Explorer. I said to a client who was a jeweler, I said, just get me the cheapest Rolex you can, and he gave me a 1016 Explorer 1, which for anyone who's not a Rolex buff, that watch is probably one of the most desired sports watches on the planet. It was the last of that plastic series, and I bought it for $1,575, brand new from a customer of mine who was a jeweler, and I sold it about 7 years later for about $10,000, and I just was wrapped in watches, and eBay was coming up. So this is talking late 90s, and my own computer business itself, I worked at that for about 10-13 years. I remember in 1990, financial year 96-97, I made $150,000, and that was fantastic. The following year, I think I made about $20,000. So it goes to show you can have a huge up and a huge down. I then went into IT contracting. and I went into watch dealing and collecting luxury goods there. And I've had many interesting brands. Breguet. I've had Rolex Presidents. I've had Rolex sports watches, all the plastic sports, Explorer 1, Explorer 2, plastic Sea Dweller, plastic red Submariner 1680, Submariner 5512, 5513. I've had Explorer 2 first series orange hand 16. That's a 1655. I've had the all sorts of sports watches I've had, and I've bought and sold them, and I've become a bit of a connoisseur. I've always loved Louis Vuitton. I remember I always had an interest for classic cars. When I was in high school, a good friend of mine, Mark French, would give me classic car magazines to read, and I just loved them, and they had ads for Louis Vuitton in them, and that started my addiction to Louis Vuitton. And I must say, most of my collection I've bought second-hand through wheeling and dealing. I don't buy retail. I don't pay retail. Retail's for suckers, to quote Kramer from Seinfeld. Most of my stuff is all bought second-hand, pre-owned. The basic principle I have as a dealer is to buy cheap and sell high, and I try my best to do that by buying vintage and estate pieces. I like to see value in pieces that other people don't think are valuable. I like to buy pieces at a great price and sell them for a high price. I like to buy a piece that looks run down and doesn't look fantastic. Like, for example, I bought a vintage Vacheron Constantine 6405, bought it from a dealer. It looked very shitty, it had a horrible strap on it, it needed a polish, it just looked like crap. I bought it, I serviced it, I got it professionally polished, put a beautiful strap on it. The crown was wrong. I put a new crown on it, and all of a sudden, it's turned from being a $2,000 item into a $4,000 item. And I don't want to sell it at $4,000. I love it so much. So that's what I'm looking for, is value in pieces there. I love jewelry. I love diamonds. But most importantly, I love my wife. I have a Japanese wife now, and I'm very, very content with her. I have 2 children with her, and she's really... she's probably the greatest thing that's happened to me. I mean, you can look at my luxury collection and say, "Geez, you've got a fantastic collection. You've got. I mean, what's my collection worth there? I think retail replacements probably mid 350 to 400,000 Australian dollars, which is probably a little bit more. You could say US. What have I paid for my luxury collection? I've probably paid 150,000. So I like to buy value. Everything I buy, I like to think I can sell it for more. I do buy new pieces occasionally, but mainly not for myself, mainly for my wife. I've bought my wife some many Louis Vuitton items brand new because I just love her and I like to give her beautiful things. I really love luxury. I love high-end brands, and I suppose, look, it all goes back to who we were as children. I mean, I remember I was never trendy as a child. No one thought I was in, and I can remember in high school, I used to love my father's old briefcase. It was like a Gladstone type of briefcase, and I used to have that at high school, and everyone laughed at me and said, "Why would you want that? You know, it's so old and dated." But I just loved the style of it, and this is the thing. For myself, now I have people look at my briefcase collection with my... Unfortunately, I don't have my father's old briefcase anymore. People look at my briefcase collection. I've got basically a hard case briefcase for every day of the week, and they say, "Wow, what beauty this is." But I had those same eyes when I was a child, when I took my father's briefcase to school. So, I mean, I find people very stupid. I find people very fickle. And I always thought, you know, I had cutting edge. I did trends before the trends were formed. I mean, I remember one teacher said to my parents, who my father was very good at suing people and scaring the shit out of them. But this teacher said, "Oh, he's going to probably be gay." And I must say, I've never. I mean, looking back in hindsight, that's probably... I can say now that was an ultimate compliment. I mean, for gay people have very good taste in fashion and design. But I must say, not that I'm homophobic, of course, but I've always loved females, and that's probably been my biggest weakness, to be honest with you. But I've always loved fashion and design, and I've always been a soft and caring person. And mind you, in business, I can be utterly ruthless, and I suppose that's kind of the the thing that you develop as a person. But my fashion sense, I always had fashion sense in school, and I was very conservative, very much, I suppose you could say, very similar. I'm nowhere near as great, of course, but as Coco Chanel. She had ideas and designs that were way ahead of her time. Coco Chanel was very much, the fashion at the time was ornate, whereas she was very, very simple fashions, and her designs are classic. Look at the Chanel 5 bottle. I mean, that she picked that Chanel 5 bottle because it looked like a pharmacy chemist bottle, and it just has turned into a design icon. I mean, that's the kind of things that I love myself. That simplicity. That's why I love Patek Philippe. I've got a white gold Patek Philippe 5107, and it's just simple but beautiful. I mean, you could be the richest man in the world and you could wear that watch proudly because it's just beautiful. It's not about money, it's about beauty. And I mean, people often say to me, wow, what's the most valuable, what's this and that? And I say, well, hang on a minute, the most valuable watch I have is actually a Cartier Panther quartz watch that my wife bought me because she loves me. That's more valuable than my Vacherons or my Patek Philippe or my Audemars. That watch means most to me than anything. So when people say what's my most valuable, I don't necessarily use monetary values. The other thing is too, a lot of pieces I've bought. I recently bought an ultra thin Audemars Piguet dress watch, which is using the ultra thin 1.6mm movement, and I mean, I didn't pay. I paid under $2,000 for it. I serviced it. I put a new strap on it. I polished it, and that's one of my all-time favorite watches that I have there. And I mean, that's just a fantastic piece. It's fantastic value. I just love it to bits. It's not about the money. I don't need diamonds on my watches. I don't need gaudy, gari things. A lot of my things I use are discreet. My briefcases I take to work, I often prefer not to have the monogram LVs on them. I prefer to have the tiger type material because it's discreet and it doesn't scream. People who know fashion say that's a very beautiful thing. They may not know the brand, but it looks beautiful. And that's the thing I love about fashion. I hope you've enjoyed this insight into who is Archie Luxury, and I hope you've seen a little bit of who I am and why I collect the things I do. And please don't leave too many nasty comments there. It's very hard for me to reveal myself to the public like this. I find I'm quite a shy person, and but I've had so many requests. Who am I and what do I do? What do I do for a job? I work in IT. I worked for KBR and Halliburton for many, many years, and I currently do IT contracting. My wife is a registered nurse. I'm very proud of my wife. She's a professional, and she's a very, very fantastic woman, but much smarter than me, I must say. And I must say, one of the things I love about making these videos is that so many people have sent me nice comments, and please don't be too nasty with the comments, and please continue to watch my videos. Thank you very much.